What's up, everyone? It's a wonderful day, and I want to share one new addition to Stardeus with you today. So this is Stardeus modding with JSON patching. So JSON patching is a very powerful and cool technique that I have added to Stardeus in a recent update, and this will allow you to do things that you've never been able to do before. So what is JSON patching? Before we begin looking at that, let me quickly tell you how it worked with mods previously. So when you wanted to create a mod, you had to copy a JSON file from the core. If you wanted to override something, I mean, you would copy the file from the core, you would put it in your mod, and maybe you would also introduce new files. But the idea is that you could override the JSON files from the core by placing the same file at the same path in your mod. And then when we would load the JSON in the game, we would just find the first file that matched. We would first check the mods, then we would check the core. So that is about to change, and you'll see how. So Stardeus is now modded with JSON patching. Instead of overriding the whole JSON file like before, your mod would create patches. And those patches would then be loaded through a patcher and applied to the JSON file. So when the game loads anything, it's going to first check if there's a patch for the file. It will then apply the patch, and then it will load the patched file instead of just an overridden JSON. So this is a huge thing, and I want to explore this a little bit deeper, and I'll show you how patching looks like and how it works and what can we do with it. So before we start, here's a concept. So let's say you have a JSON file, which is some device definition, right? So you have some components, you have another component, and then you want to override a certain property in the component. So you would create a patch file that targets this thing, and it has a replace operation with a path and a value. And you also can add and remove components this way as well. So let's say you want to add a brand new component to this. You can create an operation that does an add. It will have a path and it will have a value, which can also be a JSON. So probably easier to actually look at the example. So in the Stardeus mod template, you now have patches folder. If you open this folder here, you'll see what this looks like. And this patching thing is based on RFC 6902 JSON patch, which you can read about on the internet. So it has a bunch of operations and it has like examples how to write patches. It's only partially supported. There's no move, no copy, and no test. So only add, replace, and remove operations are supported. But also there's some extensions about the path, and we'll cover these soon, because in the RFC 6902, the path operations are pretty limited. They're only like keys and array entries, array indices, and not much else. But we needed more querying, and you'll see why. Yeah, so let's say we want to patch a charge station component. So there's a charge station component which defines what a charge station is, right? So it has like not component, charge station definition, which is an core mod definitions object devices charge station JSON, right? So this charge station JSON has these components here. It's an array, right? It's an array. There's like tile transform, there's the charge station itself, there's electric node, and all these components give some functionality. But so let's say you want to make the charge station run twice as fast. So you have this charge per hour variable, and it's 25, and you want to make it 50, right? So one way to do it would just be to change it to 50 directly in the core mod, save and reload the game, and that would work. But whenever the game would update, that would be reverted back to 25. So you have to create your own mod for it. So the easiest way to create a new mod right now is to go into mod template, main readme file. There's a link to empty mod. We're going to open that. So there's this mod empty. I will link this in the description of the video. And it's an empty mod that can be used as a starting point. So just do download zip, extract it in the local user mods directory, which can be found by opening mods, about mods, open user directory directly in game. And then you just go through this to-do thing. You update the mod info, create your own mod cover, and delete unnecessary directories. So all these directories here will have some README files in them to tell you what these are for. And if you don't need the directory, just delete it. If you need something, you keep it and put the content in there. So patches is the main directory we're going to be talking about. And there's in the empty project, there's a link to mod template. I'm going to jump back, open the patches here, and there's a couple of patches. So actually I already wrote the patch for the charge station with double speed. So if we look again here, we wanted this component, charge station component, charge per hour. We want this to be 50, right? So the patch that actually does this is here, and that's what it does. So the patch is described like this. You create a JSON file, you define the target, which points to the JSON that you're modifying. Then there's an array of operations, and each operation has an op, which is replace, add, or remove, one of these three. And also there's the path. We're gonna cover the path a little bit later because it's very important. And there's the value which we are replacing in this case, or adding. In this case, we're replacing because the operation is replace. So what is the path here? Now, it might look a little bit intimidating, but if you split it into small pieces, it's going to be very clear. So first, we're looking at the components, right? If we go back to charge station, we're looking from the root, we find the components, yeah. So this is the first thing. Now, in the components, right here, immediately we start a bracket and the component equals charge station. So this is the key, this is the value, and this is like the filter. So we say we want to find components, but not all of them, but only the one that has this matching, matching key value, right? So here we see that there's component tile transform, component charge station. So the component charge station is the one we're looking for. So in this components array, we're going to find the block which has the component key equal to charge station value, just like defined right here, right? So, and then we're digging deeper. So we're adding a slash, which means that we're going down in the hierarchy here. And we're looking for properties and filtering key equals charge per hour. So again, we go back here. So we're in this block right now, but we're looking for properties and we're looking for the one that has key equal to charge per hour. So this one. And then we're looking again, slash means that we're inside that property and we're looking for a key called float. So if we go back here, we can see that there's a key called float. And this actually the value of this thing is what we're going to be replacing. So this value of 25 is defined by this path, right? Components, component equals charge station, properties, key, charge per hour, float, right? So we're just actually have a picture right here where you might get things clearer here. So yeah, components points to this, component equals charge station, filters the components and finds this one. So it finds this block. Let me mark it. So it finds this block. Then inside this block, we're looking for properties, which finds this block. Then we're looking for key charge per hour, which finds this block. And in this block, we're looking for float, which finds the last one. So yeah, that's how it works. And then we just say the value will be 50. And once you run this mod, the result will be, you'll be able to find the result in the folder near your save files and the mods, and it's going to be called patched. In my case, it's called patched editor, but it's because, well, in the build, it will be called patched. And then you can find definitions, objects, devices, and charge station. This is the file that we have patched. And this will only be created once you run the game. So once you run the game, you're going to find this and you can verify if the patch worked. So it's going to be looking very similar to the original charge station, just with different formatting, and there will be this header added here. And if we look at the charge station charge per hour, it's indeed 50. While here it's 25. So see how the patch has actually applied this change. Now we can also examine some more patches and just like by example to see what we can do with them. So this one, for example, removes a component. It targets the matter reactor mini JSON. It calls the remove operation, and the path is components, where component equals with fuse, right? So it will find that component and it will remove it. You can actually see how it looks like. Matter reactor mini. If we open this, we're going to see that with fuse components, it's just not in the list. It's not so easy to notice, but trust me, bro, it's not on the list. And if we find matter reactor mini, the original one, right here, if we search for with fuse, it's here, right? And in the patched version, with fuse finds nothing. So we just removed a component. What else can we do? We can, for example, we can patch the research, right? So this one changes the mini core research from, what is the original again? Mini core. It's parts improved, so it's actually not like, it's pretty deep down the research tree. And this mod makes it parts basic rather than parts improved. So it replaces the whole array of researchable prerequisites. Again, if we look at this, we can see that the researchable key is here, and it has the prerequisites value, which is a JSON that is an array. And it just replaces the whole JSON value here with the new one, which rewrites the only array element here to parts basic. Again, let's see what else can we do. Double connections and range. This is the energy connector patch, which replaces the translation variables. And again, let's open up the energy connector so we can compare it to the original. In the original one, we have translation vars equal to 8 and 20. And then we have this 8 and 20 here in electric node max connections and connector range. Now in the patch, we're saying that translation vars will be 1640, so it's double. And then we replace the component, which matches component equals electric node, property, which matches key equals max connections, and the int key with 16. So it's also very important. Like here we have an int, but it could be a float, it could be a bool, so it has to match, or it will just not work. Okay, then yeah, we replace the connector range to 40, and in the result we get the connector that is double the range and double the connections. What else do we have? So with tiles, I think we're done. Let's see something more interesting, like for example, tunables. So there is a system tunable, which has these autosave parameters. It's in core config tunable system, right? So we can create a mod which overrides this. So it's not just for definitions with components, but for any JSON file that you can find in the game. So this patch operation replaces the integers array entry where key is autosave count and then an integer in there to 5. So if we look at this, ints array key autosave count integer. So this value is going to become 5. And it also replaces the key wait for seconds for idle. It was 60 in the original. Here it reduces it to 30. So every 30 seconds rather than 60, if everything is idle, we're going to save. Yeah, what else can we patch? So tunables is pretty simple. Let's look at beings. This is probably the more important and more interesting one because it was extremely difficult to patch previously. So for example, let's take a look at Orbitron. More starting jobs. So config species jobs Orbitron. Let's see. How does that look? Jobs Orbitron. You see here, the file is pretty big. So if you wanted to override this previously, you would have to copy the whole file. And let's say you wanted to add a new job here, you would have to copy the whole file and just add another job entry to this list. But now you can do this with a patch. You can say add starting jobs. Now this dash at the end of starting jobs is from RFC. If you look for this, it's adding an array value. So when it ends with a dash, it means that you want to add a new value to the array, to the end of the array. And we're adding medical job and we're adding piloting job, see? And it results in basically this plus a medical and piloting. So like that, it will look like this in the patched version. Okay, what else can we do with that? Orbitron, better stats. It changes the body. It's the body part. So main frame of the Orbitron. Let's find body Orbitron. There's config parts and definitions, so it's probably going to be a config one. Yeah. And you can see here, it's also like a big file with lots of stuff in here. And the mod actually changes what? It goes and replaces resistance base to 100. So it would get this resistance base and write 100 in here. It also does replace attack method, body slam, properties DPS with 8. So body slam DPS was 2.5. It now becomes 8. And it replaces component armor energy, properties amount to 20. So armor energy amount, it was 4, so it's 5 times more. Yeah, that's another example. You can also add new components and add new blocks to this. So let's take a look at the cat. There's this patch which makes cats emit light. So it takes a definition of the cat right here. And you can see it's very small. It doesn't have much. So it has a couple of components. But the mod here does add a new component, again with this dash syntax to the end of the component list, and the value is like a JSON file that we want to add. It's a JSON value that we want to add. We want to add the light source component, which just doesn't need energy. It's going to be radius of 3, and there's going to be a color here. By the way, for the colors here, I have a tool which can help you find these numbers very easily. Let's open up free HSL color palette generator. I wrote this tool myself and it's just available online. I'm going to link this to in the description as well. And you can change these parameters here to find yourself a nice color that you want. And then you'll see these values here. So the values you're looking for is RGB. For example, here R0G219B73. So if you want this color here, so this is the RGB, and this value is alpha. It's not in this palette here, but it's just from 0 to 255. So 1 to 8 is half, which means it's going to be like half brightness. 255 would be full brightness, 0 would be invisible. So that's how you get the color. Okay, yeah, so that would add a light component to the cat, and I actually tested this. The cats walk around and they're lit. Again, we can also see how this looks like in the final patched version. And you can see here that this is light source component. It's added on top of the other components. And let's see a more interesting example, like the final one with the carrier. Or actually, there's traits. So let's take a look at the traits real quick. So I know that a lot of people just don't like the technophobe trait, right? Because technophobe, let's take a look. Technophobe trait looks like this. It adds like minus 33% to AI alignment, and people hate that, so they skip it. I just wrote a little version here, which instead of it removes the AI alignment debuff, and instead it adds a sanity debuff. So it replaces this with minus 20% sanity debuff. Now, how the resulting file would look: config trains devs technophobe. Yeah, see, it becomes sanity here. And if we look at this patch, it's actually commented. So it finds this, removes this, and then it immediately adds sanity. This is the value that we're adding. So yeah. So the value can be either a simple thing or a complex thing. It depends on what you're doing, what your mod is trying to achieve. And you can experiment with this and see how powerful it is yourself. Okay, then let's see the last example with, I think I had a carrier. So this is a complex one. If we look at what it does here, so we're doing more starting jobs, which we did with the Orbitron. Here we add shooting. So we're gonna make carriers which cannot wield weapons. We're gonna add a weapon inventory slot for them, and they will have a shooting skill, which they used to not have before. So species weapon capable, this one is very important. So this config species types carrier is a massive JSON file. Let's open it up. Carrier, it's a massive JSON file. It is like 117 lines long, and it lacks, if you look at, for example, cleaning bot, it has a inventory slot types weapon, but no such field is available in carrier. If you're looking for inventory here, it's not here. So that's why carrier doesn't have a weapon, because it doesn't have a block for inventory. And this batch here actually adds this block. So what it does, it calls add with this path inventory slot types, and the value sets this to weapon. It's an array. So you can also add a hat and so on, but I don't think that hats will be supported by non-biologicals. Just saying. Yeah, so this whole patch is super tiny, but it produces a copy of this. Let's actually open this up. Config species types carrier. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, see, it also applies two patches here. 2 eyes and weapons capable. We're going to look at 2 eyes later, but there's also example that you can have multiple mods patching the same file. And now if we look at inventory slot types here, we can see that weapon is in there, and this was added to the end of the file. So now carriers will be able to shoot because we changed the starting jobs, and they will be able to carry a weapon. Next, in the same thing here, we have this 2 eyes. So the same species file that we just looked at, we find the body part slot types in the array. We remove the value I, right? And we add I left and I right. So the original JSON file used to have, this is the patched one, this is the original one. So the body parts used to have an I. And the patched version doesn't have an I, but it has I left and I right. So that kind of changes the body composition of the carrier. And also there's one more thing we have to do. If we change the body composition, we have to set the default parts. So there's this config body configurations carrier default. And here again, it removes the I part and it adds the I left, sets this to mini optics, and I right sets this to mini optics. So this whole this JSON is added to the parts. And let's take a look at this file, carrier default. So there we go. Yeah, this is the parts. We remove this and we add I left and I right with the same mini optics, but just to the end of this file, to the end of the parts array. Yeah, so I hope this is clear enough. And if it's not, you can always ask stuff about this on Discord or in Steam forums, I'll be happy to answer. So yeah, that's it for this walkthrough of how to use JSON patching. And I hope you enjoyed this. Have fun and see you next time.